بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما لله تبارك وتعالى. Inshallah ta'ala, we reached up to page 201 at the second paragraph from the top, and we are in our book, A Blessed Valley in the House of Al-Haddad, talking about the biography of Al-Imam Abdullah bin Alawi Al-Haddad. Inshallah tabarak wa ta'ala, let's recite Al-Fatiha for the soul of Imam Al-Haddad. Al-Fatiha.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. The author, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy on him, said, Mullah Uthman also said that Sayyid Hassan ibn Alawi ibn Hassan al-Attas, rahimahullah, had told him that whenever he greeted Imam al-Haddad, rahimahullah, and took his hands, he said to him, "Welcome to the trader." He said he waited for this to materialize, that he would become a trader and the riches of the world would come to him, but nothing happened. So he asked the Imam, "Where is this trade that you tell me about?" The answer was, "You are a trader of the hereafter." Later on, Sayyid Hassan rahimahullah lost his eyesight and inward openings came to him, and then he understood what the Imam had meant. He moved to the Jawr region in inland Oman, and when someone came along who said he was a Sayyid, he would smell his hand and tell them by the smell whether the claim was true or not. A grandson of Sheikh Abu Bakr ibn Salim, rahimahullah, once traveled from Ainat to Tarim to visit Imam al-Haddad, rahimahullah. While he was away, his wife delivered of a baby girl, and they sent a servant to inform him. It was nighttime when the servant hurried to Al-Hawi, and it was late when he arrived. He erupted unannounced into the room where the two Sayyids were, and to his astonishment saw that the Imam was reading a book as if he was not blind. The Imam reprimanded him sharply and later on decided to have a door installed on the stairs leading up to his room. Habib Hassan, rahimahullah, the Imam's son, said that in the last years of his life, his father used to go to his house in the town center before noon and rest for a while and perhaps have a nap in the room where after the Friday prayer, his hadra would be held. Near the time for the prayer, Habib Hassan would ask permission to enter and bring him his coffee before they went out to the mosque with his disciples and companions. One day,
As I
Habib
told
Hassan,
you, it is the habit of those great scholars that they had a great fondness of coffee, and they would drink it at all of their gatherings and meetings. Coffee would be served. So, in emulating them, we always recommend that you have, a little coffee with the intention of emulating the pious. MashaAllah. Now,
One day, Habib Hassan came in as usual, was told to enter, sat at the foot of the bed, and saw that his father's appearance was so majestic that he could hardly look at him. The Imam said, "Sheikh Abdul Qadir al-Jilani was just now sitting where you sit now. He had brought us a letter from Allah Ta'ala and read it to me." Habib Hassan was so awestruck that he did not inquire about the content of the message.
and here, as we mentioned before, these pious people, they had their connection with the intermediate world, as Abdul Qadir Jilani radiallahu ta'ala lived hundreds of years before Imam al-Haddad. But Imam al-Haddad had a strong connection to him. Allahu Akbar. Now,
At some
may,
point,
may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us with some of these realities. Really, especially in this time of so much doubt, that Allah grants us an opening in this regard. But also, we need to expose ourselves to that opening. And by reading these books, by having a strong conviction in the awliya, performing our obligations, refraining from the sins to the best of our ability, we are exposing ourselves to these openings. And they are happening. The matter is sometimes we just don't see it, right? Every day when I watch us do what we do, I say, Alhamdulillah, this is an opening. It's a sign of acceptance. May Allah make it a permanent, established opening for us.
At some point in his life, the Imam prayed to his Lord asking for three things. The first was that he be given to intercede for all the Muslims of his time, and this he was granted. The
Mm.
second was that the cold never destroy the crops of the land in their entirety, and this also he was granted. The third was that Allah Ta'ala should give Hydramaut just rulers to Judgment Day. But this one he was refused and told that Allah Ta'ala was more compassionate and knew better what was good for them.
Mhm.
Shortly before his death, the Imam asked for his students to be brought up to his room one by one. For each one, he made wudu and then gave the water to the student to drink, and then
And
said,
this is a form of a tabarruk, blessings from the traces of the pious, which was the habit of the companions and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he dealt with them, and scholar after one another. So yesterday we talked about at-tawassul and of Imam al-Haddad and al-istighatha, and today we're getting an example of at-tabarruk, mm, seeking the blessings and from the traces of the righteous.
I ask of you only that you should pray for my son Hassan, that Allah Ta'ala should keep him against his own ego and his times, for his life will be long. The Imam died in his house of Al Hawi on Tuesday, the 7th of Dhul Qadr of the year 1132 AH, 10th September 1720 CE, and was buried in the cemetery of Zambal, not far from the mausoleum of Sheikh Abdullah Al Aidarus.
And one of the beautiful places to visit in Tarim is the cemetery of Zembal. And among the beautiful places to visit there is the grave of Imam al-Haddad radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and to ask Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala for your needs there. Uh, this picture in the middle on that page is the place where Imam al-Haddad is buried, in that cemetery which is beneath. Mm. The word is at tabarruk, Fatima, seeking the blessings of the pious. Go ahead.
The following story is recorded in none of the sources, but transmitted orally within the Badlib family, and was related to me by Sheikh Umar ibn Abu Bakr Badlib of Medina. He said that the Imam had a disciple from Shibam by the name of Muhammad Badib, who was accustomed to spending much time with him in Turin. A few days before he died, the Imam told him to go home and have some rest. Soon afterward, a messenger from Turin, riding the Imam's mare, came to Badib in Shibam, informing him that the Imam had died, leaving instructions that he was to give him the ritual wash. He responded immediately, and they rode the same mar together to Turin. There, the Imam's sons confirmed the Imam's instructions, excuse me, that Badib was to wash him. The latter promptly made an announcement among the people gathered around the house that whoever was owed any money by the Imam should come forward and step into a particular room in the house. Once they were gathered there, he told them that those who wished to receive their due should go to one side, while those who preferred to forfeit their rights should go to the other. Then he proceeded to settle the Imam's debts one after the other until no debtors were left. Having made sure that no one else had any claims, he returned to the Imam's sons, saying, "It is done. Now you can wash your father." They
Here, there is an important thing that we should keep in mind when it comes to taking care of our debts. A lot of times, especially in this society, we are loaded with debts. And sometimes we're negligent in paying our debts because they're on payment plans and all of that. Get rid of your debts as much as possible because the debts are not overlooked. So when the person dies, you still have those debts and they're not overlooked unless the person overlooks them. So take care of them, right? And if someone owes you who has passed, be merciful towards them and overlook them. These are recommended matters that you should do. Make it easy for that person who has passed. Mm.
they said, "But he wanted you to wash him." He replied, "I just did. This is what he meant." And
MashaAllah.
a man who was sitting near the mosque the day the Imam died could not help but notice the crowd that was gathering and the number of strangers that had come into town. "Who are those?" he asked, "and why have they come here?" Another man, sitting nearby, answered him, "From Turin and elsewhere. You know, this blind fellow from El Hawi has died." Many times was the Imam heard criticizing the people of Turin for failing to take full benefit from his presence. "I am the denied blessing," he said. He described them as people who liked only those already in their graves. While a man of Allah Ta'ala is in their midst, they ignore him, and only when he dies do they begin to talk of him as a great saint.
Can you repeat this again? Anyone who works in da'wah in their area and they feel this feeling should call this to mind all the time. If we can read this paragraph again.
Many times was the Imam heard criticizing the people of Tarim for failing to take full benefit from his presence. "I am the denied blessing," he said. He described them as people who liked only those already in their graves. While a man of Allah Ta'ala is in their midst, they ignore him, and only when he dies do they begin to talk of him as a great saint.
And Imam al Haddad, he said that in another way I am a door, but the people do not recognize the door until it becomes a grave. Subhanallah. And don't miss the benefit Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala has put in your midst in the form of your teachers. Many of us, I was just mentioning this to the reader before we started, that we've benefited each other and we've read many books, different sciences, different things, enough to last us a lifetime if we reviewed and we studied. But when the day comes, when it's all said and done, when we're no longer able to do it, may Allah make it a long time. Many people, unfortunately, will be as though they didn't have this blessing for this length of time because they didn't appreciate it as it is. So it'd be like they were stripped. Don't be like that. So that means, number one, thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the blessing He gave us in these gatherings, in these readings, and whatever we do. Thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving tawfiq to our reader to come and read daily and read and read and read and read and read. This is a big benefit, right? I know I think of it all the time. As I sit here, I barely can see the words. Subhanallah. But I'm hearing them, I'm listening, I'm benefiting. Even with glasses, it gets difficult as I'm getting older. My eyesight is not as good as it used to be. And it's very difficult to read and read and read like I used to. So we should appreciate these endowments that Allah has given us. Brothers and sisters who share with us in seeking the knowledge. We benefit greatly. So keep them in your dua. And in addition to that, take advantage of the opportunity by preserving what you're learning. Now,
An estimated 20,000 people attended the funeral prayer and the burial, and Habib Hassan said that they had to prepare food for everyone. Then, on the day of the Khatam of the Quran, the number had multiplied, for all those who had missed the burial had made sure they would be there for the Khatam. To prepare the meals of rice and meat in the usual Hadrami Harasi, which is a dough of pounded meat and wheat grains that must be kept cooking for long hours and then covered with butter at the last moment before serving, they slaughtered innumerable animals, both sheep and camels, and they had to borrow every single cooking pot in the whole of both Tarim and Einat. They filled them with rice, wheat, and meat. They filled entire houses with piles of large loaves of wheat bread and other houses with dates. At the Khatam, Habib Ahmed ibn Zayn al-Habashi, rahimahullah, said to him, O Hassan, such an immense gathering, thousands upon thousands, have you prepared sufficient food for them? For there has come 700 men from Khal Rashid only. How many must have come from the larger towns of Hadramaut and from the outlying villages? He answered, every pot that was in Tarim and Not we have filled with cooked food, excuse me. If it is by the barakah of Abdullah al Haddad, if the people of Egypt should also come, it will suffice them and then some more. Otherwise, only Allah Ta'ala can suffice Allah Ta'ala's creation. And what we have prepared is all we could have possibly done. They continued to feed the people from morning until nightfall. The visitors took some with them to their families for the barakah, and some more was distributed to the houses of Turin.
Allahu Akbar.
The Imam left six male children, the eldest of whom, Muhammad, had been born in 1079 AH, 1668 CE, before his father had gone on pilgrimage. He traveled much before dying, aged around 60 in northern Yemen. The second son, Salim, was known as an ascetic, entirely unconcerned with worldly things, prone to giving away whatever was currently in his possession, modest to the extreme, doing his best to live in anonymity. His date of birth is unknown. He was educated and disciplined by his father, stayed up most nights praying, and was given to visiting the cemetery at the beginning and end of each night. He was described by his contemporaries as one of those the sight of whom reminds of Allah Ta'ala. Footnote number 13. This is a reference to the definitions given by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, may Allah Ta'ala's blessings and peace be upon him and his family, of the best of people and of Allah Ta'ala's proteges. On the first occasion, he asked his companions, do you know who the best among you are? And when they answered negatively, he said, those who, when they are seen, Allah Ta'ala is remembered. Related in Bukhari, um, in his Al Adab al Mufrad, and Ahmed in his Musnad, I think. On the second, he was asked, O Messenger of Allah Ta'ala, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who are Allah Ta'ala's proteges? He replied, those who, when they are seen, Allah Ta'ala is remembered. He died in 1165 AH, 1752 CE, and was buried near his father's feet. Habib Hussein ibn Abdullah al-Haddad,
Mm.
rahimahullah. The third son, Habib Hussein, was said by his brother Hassan to possess such an acutely penetrating intelligence and capacity for precise thinking that had he devoted himself to the study of religious sciences, he would have been peerless in Hydramaut. However, as Habib Hassan also remarked, he was too occupied with his wives, children, agriculture, and horses. He was also always busy effecting reconciliations between tribes, clans, families, and individuals, and was inclined to give away his money both to those who deserved it and those who did not. People helped themselves to his possessions, sometimes with his knowledge and approval, sometimes without. He was so liberal that his brother once suggested to their father that he appoint a supervisor over him to check his expenditures from their land in Baitul Jaber, but the Imam refused. Habib Hussein looked princely, for he was always smartly dressed, rode fine horses, and had a retinue of servants. Inwardly, however, he lived in constant awe of his lord, and was given to weeping whenever he remembered him. His mind was pure of thought, and he was, despite his possessions, detached from the world.
And here there is a secret here. And that is, like the companions, some of them had the dunya and they were wealthy and they were having a life of abundance. But for them, they had the dunya in their hands, not in their hearts. So, what is sought after for the person who Allah has expanded their sustenance in this world is to not be attached to it, right? So, make it that is your case. That even if you have a lot of dunya, things of this world, it's not blameworthy. So long as your heart is always attached to Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala in that state. That your abundance does not become a distraction from Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So then the others, they said about them, they wanted the dunya not for the dunya itself, but for the akhirah. Right? They wanted the dunya not for the dunya itself, but for the akhirah. Mm.
He attended his father's teaching sessions and read many books in his presence, among which were the Ihya, the Tafsir of mm,
Al-Baghawi.
Al-Baghawi, excuse me, and the Hadith compilation of Bukhari.
And
These
these were books that Imam al-Haddad were attached to. Really, 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 really. We have a lot of things we can't do that we would love to do because we are still developing in our learning. These books, we are very attached to them through Imam al-Haddad. Abundant reading al-Ihya, abundant reading in Tafsir al-Baghawi, and abundant reading in Sahih al-Bukhari and its commentaries. This was a habit of Imam al-Haddad, and that's why they highlighted those particular books because he used to read in them a lot with various students, which is an indication that even though he was a great Sufi master, he was attached to the book and the Sunnah, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, which is indicated by his constant reading in the Tafsir al-Baghawi and in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari. Mm. And he passed that to his children, where they read it many times. Mm.
these read in the presence of the Imam with his commentary and clarifications would obviously have been amply sufficient to make anyone a scholar of consequence. However,
Just by sitting in his sessions, the amount of knowledge that was read and expounded upon by Imam al-Haddad, just being in that session could make you scholarly. Just being around it, enough, right? If you sit in those circles enough, you hear so much that you become learned just by being around in the company. You know, it's like sitting around the cellar of musk. Even if they don't give you none directly, you're going to get the beautiful scent. Mm.
However, by Alawi standards, it only attracted remarks like those of Habib Hassan. Habib Hussein is the one upon whose request the Imam dictated his second largest book, Al Dawa al Tama wal Tadhkira al Amma. In
That
11,
Tama is a book on Da'wah by Imam al Haddad. Uh, everyone should read that book. It is a book, I'll put it up for those who would like to get it. In this book, Imam al Haddad mentions the responsibility in calling to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at every level of people in the society. Everyone, what is your function in a da'wah? Because no one's excluded, right? So Imam al-Haddad lays it out in this book. And the number 3 in our book is al-ilm wal-amal wal-da'wah. We learn, we implement, and we call to Allah. This book, the whole book, is about a da'wah and what is needed in that regard. Inshallah, I have the intention, I need to get back to it. It's like over the next year that we start making an effort to read and explain these books of Imam al-Haddad. And maybe we'll do it not one book at a time, but all the books a section at a time. This way I could do 2 things. So maybe we'll all, every day, we'll read a small section from one of his books. I'll set that up. That way you get the whole picture of Imam al-Haddad. So this day we read this book, this day we read that book, just a section, maybe 15 minutes. We still do our sessions. But I believe from experience, from myself and others, that the books of Imam al-Haddad are exactly what we need in our time. It is sufficient. And this book, in terms of what we need to do with our friends and family and our environment, how to engage, how to call to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need that. So I recommend this book, Da'wah to Tama, for all of you who want to put emphasis on the last 3 in the 3-4-5-3, al-ilm al-amal wa da'wah. This book is specifically written for that purpose. Now,
in 1118 AH, 1706 CE, Habib Hussein contracted a marriage with Sharifa Fatima and then set out to perform the pilgrimage, so that the marriage was consummated only upon his return. As he was passing through the town of Nisab, a robbery took place
so
in Nisab. A robbery took place, and the victims complained to Habib Hussein. He recognized the thief by way of unveiling and without anyone's knowledge warned him that either he would return the stolen goods or else be denounced. The goods were returned. In Mecca, he studied.
Unveiling is al-kashf. Al-kashf is unveiling. And it is among the first signs of the wali's karamat. They get spiritual unveilings. In fact, it is said about them that they used to protect their children in their areas and did not let them leave outside their areas till they became pubescent. Because usually, by the time they became pubescent, they were people of al kashf. They had unveilings and they could protect themselves. Subhanallah. Mm.
In Mecca, he studied under various masters. People came to him with abundant gifts of money. A certain man gave him 1,000 piastres, intending 500 to be for him and the other 500 for his father. He spent them all. When this was recounted to Habib Ahmed ibn Zayn al-Habashi, rahimahullah, he remarked, his father has told him, take everything you need from what is mine, for in one of his poems his father had declared him his deputy, and deputies are free to manage funds as they see fit.
Allah.
Fatima bore Habib Hussein a girl, whom he named Sheikha, and then
Shaker, shaker. Look, read that again.
Fatima bore Habib Hussein a girl, whom he named Sheikha,
MashaAllah.
and then a boy whom he named Ali. But when he married another woman from the tribe of Qusair from the Beit Jubair Valley, they quarreled, and Fatima left the house, leaving her children with their father. The girl soon
Can you
died,
read
and
that paragraph again just one more time? I just feel, make me feel good.
Fatima bore Habib Hussein a girl whom he named Sheikha, and then a boy whom he named Ali. But when he married another woman from the tribe of Qusair from the Beit Jubair Valley, they quarreled, and Fatima left the house, leaving her children with their father. The girl soon died in her
Hey,
father's
you
house.
know what? Somebody might need to hear this again, so just one more time, please.
Fatima bore Habib Hussein a girl whom he named Sheikha, and then a boy whom he named Ali. But when he married another woman from the tribe of Qusair from the Beit Jubair Valley, they quarreled, and Fatima left the house, leaving her children with their father. The girl soon died in her father's house. Whenever Fatima wished to visit her son, she had to go up to El Hawi, and one day as she was up there, she went to see Imam Abdullah el Haddad and found him having finished the afternoon teaching sessions and sitting outside on a mud brick bench, leaning against the northern wall of his house, reciting his awrad. She greeted him by kissing his hand and then his knee, and straightway he said, why don't you make up with my son Hussein? This is a marriage he was destined to make, so let him fulfill his destiny. She said, he has remarried when he has already married 3 women. He said, you must make up with him, and once you do, you will conceive of a girl. Name her Sheikha, as this one who died. She will have children who will sit here in this place of mine. And he placed his hand on the ground before adding, pointing at his head, she will be like a turban on my head, and her life will be long. Fatima accepted the advice and made up with her husband, and soon Allah Ta'ala gave her a girl, whom they named Sheikha. As she grew up, her hand was asked in marriage by many an Alawi family, wishing to benefit from the Imam's prayers and promises for her, but her mother had decided she wished her to marry her cousin, Habib Ahmed, son of Habib Hassan, for his intelligence, knowledge, and stable, generous character. Fatima thus took it upon herself to pray to Allah Ta'ala at all the blessed times and in all the blessed places where she expected her prayers to be answered, until Habib Ahmed did ask for her hand. Sheikha bore him 2 daughters and 9 sons, among whom was Habib Alawi, who assumed succession to the religious leadership at Al
Allahu
Hawi
Akbar.
and did indeed sit everywhere Imam al Haddad had set before him. Fatima al Qusayri died in 1196 AH.
How can you not read this stuff and just be so happy? You know what I mean? Like, subhanallah, that these are knowers of Allah. They have foresight. right? That they see in the loins down the road. You'll marry this, you do this, name this is going to become of this. And they had this vision, penetrating sight, right? And then if you look at the successorship of Imam al-Haddad, it came through those women. Subhanallah. So Sheikha marries Ahmed ibn Hassan ibn Abdullah al-Alawi al-Haddad, whose son Alawi becomes the master and successor of Imam al-Haddad. Alawi ibn Ahmed ibn Hassan ibn Abdullah ibn Alawi al-Haddad. Subhanallah. In the name is a secret. We got to think. We got to go. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. High aspirations. High aspirations. Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. Mm. Okay, go ahead.
Habib Hussein was to suffer from numerous severe and prolonged illnesses. His father, Imam al-Haddad, rahimahullah, had often been heard many years before repeating with compassion, "Poor Hussein." He went on his second pilgrimage after the Imam's death, when he was already weak with illness. He was contented with what Allah Ta'ala had decided for him and bore his sufferings with fortitude, his face radiating with the lights of contentment. He was heard saying to his brother, "I am averse neither to dying now nor to continue living, even with all the illnesses I suffer. My likeness is that of a man who lives in plenty, has ample time, and the company of loyal friends. When he departs, it will be to rejoin his relatives and the great among his ancestors." He remained entirely relaxed and uncomplaining, totally surrendering to Allah Ta'ala's plans for him. He was nursed during his terminal illness by his wife, Fatima el-Qusayri, with who was the first of his brothers to die after their father and was buried not far from him. His son Abdullah spoke to the governor of Mecca to build a zawiya for Imam al-Haddad. The zawiya was erected in Jiyad and was for years used for sessions of teaching and remembrance.
Allahu Akbar. Let's stop
Habib,
there. But I want to tell you, so we're going to come to this great grandson of Imam al-Haddad, Habib Alawi bin Ahmed bin al-Hassan bin Abdullah al-Haddad radiallahu ta'ala anhu. He has one of the most informative books on at-tawassul and istighatha and refuting al-Wahhabiyya because he lived in that time. He wrote specifically, we talked about it yesterday. He wrote specifically in this subject. And laid out, it's a thick book, laid out the position of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah in this regard, as opposed to those deviant ideas. And many of the books that are from the Haddad family are authored through his route. Radiallahu ta'ala anhu. So let us stop there. We reached, okay, we'll stop there. Insha'Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Let me remind you, uh, Allahu Akbar. we're getting close, almost 2 weeks, a little less, a little more, from the beginning of our online subscription based lessons, uh, which are a monthly subscription. These these sessions and these classes are my attempt to really, really, really produce students and learned callers to Allahu Tabarak wa Ta'ala. That we talked about doing a da'wah and learning to spread the knowledge, and some people becoming teachers because the levels of people are different. This is my attempt. I want to, through this, duplicate myself at various levels, right? This, everyone has something they want to leave behind, like a legacy. And there's not enough of us. It's not. And in the format we do it now, like in the day, every day, I can't give all that I want to give for several reasons. Among them, the old parable, you don't cast pearls to swine. And when you just throw knowledge out into the world without knowing where it's landing, swine will pick up the knowledge and use it in ways that it shouldn't be used. This is all figurative. I gather you got that, right? It will be wasted. A story was told to me, and it was hurtful. I didn't say anything, but I'll tell you the story. One of my longtime brothers who've been studying with me for 30 years, 30 years he's been with me, a companion. Uh, he said he was at a place, he happened to be at a place for Jumu'ah, and they had the person, the khatib, who was giving the Jumu'ah. He told the people that he was a student of me. When he gave the speech, he didn't even fulfill the integrals of the speech properly, which according to our madhab, then the Jumu'ah is invalid for everybody. And he said, I was there and I wanted to say something to him, but I didn't want to embarrass him. He said, but I was so disappointed that he would say, and that knowing well that you would never go for something like that. Right? That's deep. He was very angry. He said, I know he didn't study with you. and he really don't know the person, but he knows me and he knows how we learned because he's been with me for 30 years. He said that's not acceptable. And that's the danger of learning online, because the wrong person will take it and go somewhere with it that don't belong there, right? There was another time when our Sheikh Imaduddin Abu Hijra, rahimahullah, when he was alive, and we used to share teaching sessions. Some person set up a whole website and he was teaching. And then when we looked at his teachers, our names were there. Someone sent it to me. I said, I never heard of this person before. I don't know them. So maybe, I don't remember, I forget. So I called the sheikh and I asked him the same question. I said, do you know this person? I mean, it's possible. Sometimes we have sessions and you just don't, if you ain't real close, I just might not remember you. But that doesn't mean you didn't learn, right? And he was saying, I have ijazah through them, and it's possible. So when I asked the sheikh, she said, I never heard of this person. So I started scratching my head, and the sheikh got angry. And I showed him, I said, he has a whole website, he has a whole stuff, and you're there as his teacher. So then we started to think about it because we was puzzled. At that time, we used to give like every 6 months, maybe every 4 months, we used to give like weekend intensives, like from Friday night to Sunday. And we would sometimes finish books. This was in New York. That person attended one of those sessions. He did. However, it was a session with maybe 70, 80, even 100 people. It was an open session, and a general authorization was given to everyone. That wasn't meant for nobody to teach. It was meant that you sat and you heard. You understand my point? But that person took it as if someone authorized him to go teach. And it was full of mistakes. It's honorable that he wanted to teach, but that's not how you go about it. Because neither one, myself, and definitely not the sheikh, would have approved him to teach what he was doing. And the stuff he was doing, we didn't know nothing about. He got permission only in this specific thing, right? It happened another time, just to give you the example. A person who claimed to be Athari, Hanbali, one time Sheikh Samir was coming here. He comes, as you know, and we were doing another book. This person wanted to study. So he called me, he contacted me, he said, I want to learn from Sheikh. And I want to learn this specific book. I said, well, we're not teaching that book. But if you come and we have time, inshallah, Sheikh is generous, and we'll sit together and we'll read with the Sheikh, no problem. I'll make time if you're an inspired student. So he came, we sat, he learned, he sat in the class. Then the last day, we had like 2 hours left. And I asked the sheikh, I said, Sheikh, do this book. This brother traveled all the way. He wants to take ijaza in reading this book. So we read the book. This person took that ijaza. It was, we signed his sheikh signed the book. He took that ijaza and went spreading knowledge as if the sheikh sanctioned what he was saying. And he was talking borderline stuff that sheikh would never accept in Aqidah and like, but I seen this multiple times. So you're not going to produce that student you want from these open sessions like that. I gave you, that was 3 examples of what could happen, right? In these sessions, your name will be written down, what you covered, what you passed, what you failed. A certificate will be given upon different levels. There will be grading, homework will be checked. It's going to be to ensure that you actually learned. Right? It's not going to be like loose. Uh, and as I said, you will have to be committed for at least 1 year. If you're not committed for 1 year, you won't, you could benefit, but you won't get what the objective is. Because as we had laid out, we'll complete the foundational section of these lessons in 1 year, inshallah ta'ala. And I would hope that when when you finish the first year, you are suitable to do da'wah. And you would be authorized to do that. It's designed to do that. That someone could sit with you and learn their foundational knowledge in an organized and structured manner with details. And they would have an overall view of the Islamic sciences. So that's the intention. Inshallah, may Allah give us tawfiq. But that's where I will concentrate my energy, because hopefully I hope to produce some teachers that are ready to go. So it will be very strict. I know some of us are used to this platform. It will be nothing like what we do here, right? It won't even resemble it at all. So there won't be a lot of side talking and chat boxing and talking about what you have for breakfast. That's not going to happen, right? You have to come to learn. That's it. Uh, so inshallah, may Allah make it easy. May Allah make it uh, may Allah make it possible. So I'll put it up. There's the link. We start December the 6th. As far as the classes, some people may have schedule conflicts. That ain't going to be everybody. Those who are serious will make adjustments for them because Wednesday's the main class, but they're going to be review classes. There's going to be other things available. And we're building it out as we go on to see how the student can adapt to it because this is like a pilot program. So, it's going to be some kinks. We expect that. No, these classes will not be like they'll be all online. They won't be face to face. But the way the classes are lined is going to be some check in review. Right now, there will be no physical class, but that don't mean that we won't do physical things in the future. But as of now, no, all online. Tayyip, barakallahu bikum. May Allah reward you all. I want to ask you to do one thing quickly. Please make dua for our brothers and sisters who have really made a strong effort to learn this deen, but ran into information that is not sound and correct, and thereby fell into error. Please make dua for those people, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides them to the correct knowledge of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Because there are some people who put in a lot of effort by what was available to them, but it happened to be wrong. But they took themselves, they put efforts, they traveled, they put their children through it. And that's sad. So make dua for them. Really. Right? Please make dua for them. And there are hundreds of people like that. Really thousands. But I'm talking about those who really put in a lot of effort and end up la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, mistaken. Make dua for them, inshallah. And when we talk, we don't intend to belittle that effort because they put in work. And that's why we have to be diligent in making sure to our ability the correct knowledge of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah is available, readily available, right? Because if it was available, maybe they would have got it and put that effort there, but it wasn't available. And it's a pattern of that. So we have to work. We have to work, which is one of the reasons why every day I try to come on. To just do my part. I can't do everything. I just do my part. And if another does his part and we produce more people, the knowledge would be available. And then people can go to next levels. But we have to do our part. Barakallahu bikum. May Allah reward you all. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.